Nigeria's ruling political party, the All Progressives Congress, perhaps has the singular distinction of having separate campaign trails for the party's men and women members ahead of the forthcoming presidential election. As the party gets set to launch its women campaign rally for its presidential candidate Bola Tinubu, a member of the Tinubu-Shetima Women Presidential Campaign Team, Rinsola Abiola, joins us now to discuss issues arising from the campaign and why APC has a separate campaign team for women and the APC manifesto as agenda for women and young people. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. So why this departure from what seems to be normal? Why is there a separation between the men and the women? Why is that going on? Can you break that down for us?
So I wouldn't call it a separation. I would call it an attempt at ensuring proper gender mainstreaming in our party. As far as gender mainstreaming goes, APC leads and other parties follow. In the Women's Presidential Campaign Team, we have over 1,400 women selected from across the country who are part of the campaign, part of the effort to ensure that our presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his running mate, Senator Kashim Shettima, are elected at the presidential polls in February next year, God willing. So ours is a party that has been working towards ensuring that women are better represented in matters to do with politics, in matters to do with governance. A couple months ago, when the primaries came around, the cost of the cost of nomination forms was waived for women, for instance. Women aspirants only paid for the cost of the expression of interest forms. So these are part of reforms that have been introduced in the APC to ensure that our women have an even playing field and that women are better represented in decision-making structures, and women are more actively involved in party processes at every step of the way. So the Women Presidential Campaign Team has been set up in tandem with the party's vision to ensure that women are better represented in our political system.
Now, the APC is obviously the incumbent, and during the APC's current administration, Nigeria has been ranked 181 out of 193 on the Gender Equity Index, and that's for countries with low female representation. In this current election, there are only 6% of the APC's National Assembly candidates who are women. So we're curious to know, shouldn't the aim be to involve women in inclusive mainstream politics as opposed to running parallel organizations? After all, there is no parallel government for women, just the one women. So how does a parallel organization ensure female representation in the mainstream government?
So as I said earlier, what we have with the Women's Campaign Team is not a parallel organization. It's a women's wing of the campaign. When we have political parties, we have youth wings, we have women's wings. They are not referred to as parallel organizations. They are part and parcel of those political parties. When it comes to women's representation in governance, all across the world, improved figures when it comes to enhancing women's representation come about as a result of sustained advocacy. And APC women have been at the forefront of sustaining advocacy to ensure that women are better represented in party processes and that women have greater opportunities to emerge as candidates. Now, you made reference to the number of women candidates that we have and the number of women in the House of Assembly or in the National Assembly presently. We're not denying the fact that the level of women's representation is low, but we are saying that APC women have been sustained advocacy in ensuring that women are better represented, and that advocacy is beginning to yield fruit. As I stated earlier, finance is one of the major barriers to women's political participation, and the party has taken steps to address that. So advocacy is something that you get results by sustaining it. We're not going to get everything to happen in one fell swoop, and I would say that the APC is leading the way in ensuring that women are more visible in campaign processes. Now, women are better able to emerge and occupy positions when governments are formed, depending on how active they are during the campaign and electioneering process. With over 1,000 400 women in the APC Presidential Campaign Council as part of the Women's Presidential Campaign Team been actively involved in this process, it is very, very likely that we'll have women occupying more positions in the next administration, building on gains that have been recorded in the current one. In the APC manifesto, there is a section dedicated to women's mainstreaming. When it comes to political inclusion, we're aiming to have women not just be more active within the party, but also better included in governance at every stage of governance, in ministries, in agencies, in government offices. We're targeting no less than 35% representation for women in all positions that are to be filled, and also a commensurate number set as a minimum quota for women to occupy in senior positions in the cabinet itself. And we also must remember that it was during this administration that Nigerian women advocacy groups were able to secure the court ruling from the Federal High Court, securing 35% affirmative action for women in appointive positions at the federal level. And the APC manifesto now, the Renewed Hope manifesto, has taken a step forward to say that even in employment opportunities from the government, women will occupy no less than 35%. And we're also saying the same thing for young people. At least 3 seats will be reserved for young people when it comes to key appointments, young people below 40, and yet another 6 for young people below 50. So advocacy is something that you get results on gradually. Everything is not going to happen at once, but the women and the young people of this country have absolute confidence in us. We are assuring them that we'll continue to push for increased participation, we'll continue to push for increased representation, and we'll do all that it takes to ensure that women and youths are better represented in the APC government.
Rinsola, you've spoken quite well. You know, in some cases we hear that the current administration or that President Buhari is not, you know, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and sometimes we see cases where we have the First Lady saying that this administration of Bola Tinubu, should he emerge president, would build on the gains or the groundwork that has been laid by this outgoing administration. We also understand now that, you know, those that are in support of your movement are giving promises that they will secure 40 million votes from women and youth for Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Just to cite 2 examples, we saw what happened with the gender bills, how that was a bit of a tussle. We've seen what's happened with the ASU strike, how that was approached by this administration. If you're actually going to build on what's been laid down by the Buhari administration, why would anyone want a repeat of what's happened over the past 7 years?
I will start by saying that when you speak about the gender bills and when you speak about challenges with getting gender-based legislation to pass in the National Assembly, it is very important that we note that the National Assembly is not made up entirely of APC legislators. We have a number of societal factors that greatly limit women's political participation and greatly hamper the movement for women's rights. But as I said earlier, all hands are on deck to ensure that women take their rightful place in the scheme of things in this country. And APC women particularly are committed to that. We have always advocated for this. And even when the gender bills were thrown out, there was a lot of advocacy, both within the party and from the civil society organizations. And I remember then that the Speaker of the House, who is himself a notable he-for-she advocate, pledged that some of those bills would be revisited. And we also must not throw out the baby with the bathwater. We also have to remember other gains that have been made. It was this same APC administration that passed the Not Too Young to Run bill. I was a key part of the advocacy for that. And that was the bill that actually lowered the age of eligibility for elective office. So when we really do say that the APC is the best bet for Nigerian youths and for Nigerian women, we're not just talking, we can actually point to things that we have done. And then talking about the foundation laid by this administration, I think it would be very unfair to give the impression that it's all been negative. We have had the most aggressive infrastructure drive since the advent of our democracy. There are many things that we can point to. The social investment programs are things that Asiwaju's administration will build on if, God willing, he is elected in February of 2023. We have a homegrown school feeding program, the Empower, which has empowered a lot of young people, and it's part of the plans to ensure that young people particularly have greater access to finance for their businesses, that we build on the social investment programs and social welfare initiatives to ensure that, for instance, girl-child education, the discrepancy in the level of enrollment of girls in school is tackled with conditional social welfare programs that will be hinged on factors like which children being sent to school, nutrition, and other such things. So it's a very well thought out manifesto that we have, and we do have achievements that we can build on by this administration. There has been no administration in the history of our democracy that has invested as much in the people and as much in our infrastructure as the Buhari administration has.
Right. Now, I'd just like to make a point of correction, as earlier you did say that the female representation has increased. However, statistics do say that since the 2019 elections, we've seen a 3 percentage point decrease in female representation in governments. But that's besides the point. Now, we look at the Presidential Campaign Council, the main one. And in many conditions, this can be termed to be the shadow cabinet. Yet we don't see 35% there. The other day we saw your candidate in Jos at a rally, and the stage was male-dominated. We've seen various platforms, and there are no female faces on the stage alongside anywhere within, the corridors of power. What guarantee do you have that if this government is to come into power, that suddenly there will be a 35% representation when throughout the campaign we haven't seen that?
I would like to start by saying, or more accurately by correcting you as well, I did not say that women's representation has increased. I said APC women have been at the forefront of advocating for enhanced representation for women. That's what I said. And secondly, regarding women's representation at our rallies and events, I think if we have an arm of the campaign dedicated entirely to women to ensure that women are well represented, that is something worthy of commendation. No one else has done it. And when we talk about the main Presidential Campaign Council, we have Hajia Hadiza Bala Usman, who is playing a very key role in that campaign as well. There are lots of other women in the Central Campaign Council, even in the youth movements in all the regions. And these are positions that normally are reserved for young men or for men specifically. So the PCC is not entirely populated by men. There are quite a number of people who are members of the Women Presidential Campaign Team who are also members of the PCC, acting in several capacities within the main Presidential Campaign Council. And talking about women's representation, I want us to look at Asiwaju as a person and his track record. I make it bold to say that there is no other presidential candidate who can point to as many women as he has empowered as Asiwaju has. Asiwaju, as governor of Lagos, had a lot of women in his cabinet. This is somebody who was born to a strong woman, husband to a strong woman. His wife is a 3-term senator, a ranking senator at the moment. Someone who has not stifled the growth of his wife will not stifle the growth of Nigerian women. And we can trust a man like that, who is not intimidated by strong women, to give Nigerian women the kind of policies that we need to thrive in this country. We also have Senator Kashim Shettima, who, as governor of Borno State, had 4 female commissioners in his cabinet, setting a record at the time in northern Nigeria. So when we talk about our candidates, when we talk about their antecedents when it comes to gender mainstreaming, we're not just saying it because we want women to vote for us. We're saying it because they have walked the talk, they have proven it. Asiwaju has mentored a lot of women. Honorable Abika Dabiri recently received a national honor. There are so many other women like that. Honorable Orelope, the former deputy governor of Lagos State. We have so many other women that we can point to. In Lagos right now, Lagos leads the way when it comes to gender mainstreaming, not just when it comes to appointments, but also look at the agency they have, for instance, the Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Unit, which is at the forefront of ensuring that sexual crimes and all crimes regarding domestic violence are prosecuted diligently in Lagos State. These are the kind of ideas that have been initiated in Lagos State, where Asiwaju is from, and which we can also boast of and be confident in and say that these are the kind of gender-sensitive and progressive ideals that he will initiate if elected as president of Nigeria. There is nobody else really who has contributed as much to building women, even within the political space, as Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has. And I'm challenging all other candidates and their supporters to come forward with a list of women whose lives they have impacted and what they have done. As governor of Lagos, he invested heavily in supporting women. Asiwaju was born to a market woman. His daughter is an iyaloja. This is a man who understands fully well the importance of women, how much they contribute to the economy, how much power they wield politically. And he's not the kind of person that will get into office and then renege on his promises when it comes to women or when it comes to anything else.
Well, Rinsola, some of your critics might say that the separation of this presidential campaign team based on gender, it's simply a political strategy and just for optics with no true substance in the end. What would your response to that be?
I would say that the same people would have said that the APC is anti-women if we had had a PCC standing alone with the number of women not up to what they would like. Critics are bound to talk. Ours is to work. We have the grand patron of the women's campaign team, Dr. Mrs. Aisha Buhari, Her Excellency, who is doing a great job, who has also been at the forefront of supporting women in the APC administration. Senator Oluremi Tinubu, who is a formidable politician in her own right. Hajj Nana Shetima, a humanitarian who has done a lot of work. We have a lot of women of substance within the APC presidential campaign team. These are not people that you put together for optics. These are people that you bring together because you know that there is a job for them to do. And speaking about women, women make up half the population of this country, about 49% or thereabouts. And it is said that a bird cannot fly with one wing. So if the APC is dedicating one arm of its campaign to women, it's the same way we have a youth wing of the campaign. Nobody is calling that a cosmetic measure. So why is it the efforts of women that they're trying to erase? So if the APC is bringing together women of this sort, women with this kind of background, with this kind of profile, it is because we understand that Nigerian women are a very important demography when it comes to elections, when it comes to votes, and we are not joking with our people. Any politician worth their salt knows just how much women contribute to electoral victory. So the APC has set up the Women Presidential Campaign Team, and we flagged off in Ilorin yesterday to show the importance, to underscore the importance of having women participate fully in this campaign, to underscore the importance of having women being mobilized properly in this campaign. We are running a multifaceted campaign so that there is no demography that is left out. We have an active people with disability unit as well. We have an active women wing. We have a very active youth wing. And then we have the central PCC, which has people from all these different groups, because our party is inclusive, our party is progressive, and Asiwaju, our presidential candidate, is progressive not just in his politics, but also in his home. And certainly, I believe, we all believe that he is somebody that Nigerian women can trust to actually safeguard their interests.
Now, Nigeria certainly is home to brilliant women, but speaking of inclusivity, of some groups, support groups have raised alarm, or rather concern, over the exclusion of Women Affairs Minister Dame Pauline Talon, Dr. Betta Edu, the women leader, and the APC governorship candidate, Senator Aisha Binani, from the women campaign team. What is the reason for their exclusion?
I think it's not, I'm thinking of how to say this very delicately, but you're a news agency and it's very important that you stay updated with developments in political parties. Her Excellency Dame Pauline Talon is listed in the list of the women's campaign team. Our amazing, brilliant, wonderful, beautiful national women leader, Dr. Betta Edu, heads contact and mobilization by virtue of her position as national women leader, and she's also, listed. She's in charge of contact and mobilization. And then, sorry, who was the last person you mentioned? These are people. Okay, Senator Aisha Binani. Yes. Senator Aisha Binani was actually named as the coordinator of the PCC in Adamawa, being the gubernatorial candidate. But from what I understand, she stepped down from that position because of the recent court ruling nullifying the primaries that produced her as candidate. So these are not at all accurate. And I think the critics or whoever it is that's telling you this thing,
they were not in the original list.
Do your homework.
I'm saying the exclusions have been corrected because they were not in the...
Lists are updated.
Okay, wonderful.
Well, Rinsola, undeniably, I saw some of the clips of your event in Ilorin, and they were quite admirable. I'm just wondering if you could give us a rundown of where your next campaign activities will be and what else we should expect to see based on this women's campaign team.
Nigerian women and Nigerian people, Nigerian youth should expect a campaign that is respectful, that puts them first. Our leaders, the co-chairman and the chairman, Senator Oluremi Tinubu and Hajj Nana Shetima, are fully committed to being partners in progress to Nigerian women. Our youths are all over the place consulting. Our youth leader has been all over the country consulting young people, from communities to villages. We are not taking the fact that we are the governing party for granted. We know that we need people to support us. We know that we need Nigerians to vote for us, and we are not taking any of it for granted. Nigerians should expect a campaign that is centered on the matters that actually truly matter to them, on issues that matter to them, on things that truly prove that we're a progressive party. And whatever activities we have will be communicated to the media. We're very active on all the major platforms. So there's constant communication going on, a lot of work going on to ensure that we get. This show is on the road already, and it's going to be a very convincing couple of months from the APC, the women wing, the PCC, the youth wing, because the people matter, and we are putting the people at the heart of our campaign.
Great stuff. And, you know, we've dwelled a lot on representation in this conversation, but I would love to know what are the top 3 things that are on the agenda for the women campaign team? What are the 3 issues that are most pressing that you will be pushing?
Providing succor to the needy. If you've been following, recently we've had visits paid to victims of floods across the country by Senator Oluremi Tinubu and Hajiya Nana Shettima, and of course with material sent by Her Excellency the First Lady, Dr. Mrs. Aisha Buhari. These are women who care. In the APC, the women, we care about the people. So definitely giving succor to the needy, prioritizing the vulnerable in our society, also pushing for inclusion for women, you know, taking a holistic approach to it, not just when it comes to political representation, but when it comes to financial empowerment. In our manifesto, you will find that one of the key issues there is ensuring that women have better access to finance. We will work on ensuring that financial institutions prioritize women-owned businesses and give them the kind of support that they need. And then, of course, ensuring that Nigerian women are free to live their lives, are able to be active in their communities without having to deal with all the social stigma and trauma that comes with it. So this is a campaign that is for women, by women, of women. You can call it the democracy of and for women if you like, but this remains the only party that has really put women, put women top of mind and at the center of everything that they're doing. And I'm hoping the Nigerian women support us with their votes at the polls.
That's a good premise for my next question, Rinsola. A little bit of a repeat of what we mentioned earlier, but 40 million votes from the women and the youth. How confident are you that you're going to secure that? And what gives you that confidence?
Well, at the risk of sounding disrespectful to other parties, in Nigeria at this moment, there are 2 political parties, the All Progressives Congress and others. And with the level of mobilization going on, everybody's working. There's nobody resting on their oars. The women are all out, across the states. Even in states where we happen to be in the opposition, the youths are all out across the states, across the regions. In the PCC, everybody is working really hard, tirelessly, night into day, day into night to ensure that we deliver this election. So it's the work that is ongoing, the commitment of our people, the shared belief in our party and in our candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Senator Kashim Shettima. For us, it is easy to speak to people because we have track records to make reference to. We have, antecedents to make reference to. These are men who have already been in public service. They have been tested and they are trusted. So we are confident in our ability to actually muster the kind of numbers that we need.
All right, Rinsola, and one of the main reasons for flagging off in Kwara State yesterday was that you celebrated Kwara State for all that the state has done for women and for the fight for gender parity. What are some of those lessons that will be taken if we were to take Kwara State as a case study? What are some of the things that will be adopted from there on a national scale?
Last year, during the 16 days of advocacy, I was in Kwara State. This is unrelated to the campaign now, but I was there when the governor signed into law the bill securing representation for women in political positions, appointments. And then we also have other APC states that are doing really, really well with women's representation. Kaduna under Malam Nasir El-Rufai as governor. Ogun State also recently signed the affirmative action executive order into law, securing 35% affirmative action for women in appointive positions. And, I mentioned earlier that in our manifesto, one of the things we're proposing is to have legislation that will actually safeguard women's representation in government offices, ministries, and institutions, by ensuring that no less than 35% of positions are filled by women. And when we say no less than 35%, it actually means that it could be more. And world over, all the countries that have been able to attain gender parity took deliberate steps towards it. And actually makes me very happy as a gender advocate to see that in my candidate's manifesto, we actually do have, something that says that a law will be sponsored. We will seek to work with the National Assembly to ensure legal protection for women's representation. So this is something that has been done already. It's already listed in the manifesto. And I would like to especially commend Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak for his efforts at ensuring not just the mainstreaming of women, but also young people. His cabinet is filled to the brim with young people, and you can actually tell that they infuse this youthful energy and good ideas with the kind of results they're getting in Kwara State. So it's a great thing, and I hope that others can come on board. Opposition parties are free to copy. It's all for a good cause, although I don't really see many of them, or any of them actually, doing as much for young people and women.
Well, Rinsola, you've spoken very well, and we certainly wish you well. Rinsola Abiola is a member of the Tinubu Shetima Women Presidential Campaign Team, and we thank you for your time here on Newsday.